Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heartandhand. That's nordvpn.com/heartandhand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Hello everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar, and as always, I am your host, and I'm joined, as usual, by Mr. David Graham. Hello, Davey.
Davey, good afternoon. Listeners, good afternoon.
Remarkably cheery start to podcasting life in 2026. I'm quite enjoying 2026 so far. I suppose couldn't be much worse than 2025. I mean, at worst, it would have been the same as 2025, which was a bloody horrible year. But so far, so good.
So far, so good. And Andy McGowan made it back in one piece from Aberdeen.
Eventually, after midnight.
Eventually. Without going off topic straight away, myself and Cameron James Bell had concocted this plan where myself and my eldest son, Zachary, were going to fly into Aberdeen lunchtime Sunday. Cammy was then going to have us back down the road with time to spare for the 10 o'clock flight back from Edinburgh to Belfast. By the sounds of things, it was going to be the 10 a.m. flight this morning. That was a bit the earliest. So, I'm booked to go across to Easter Road. If anyone's there, come and say hello in a couple of weeks. But yes, hope all Bears get home in one piece. And hopefully the gentleman who had the vicious attempted murder by our Belgian centre midfielder has recovered, but I'm sure we'll talk about that in due course as well.
Yeah, we certainly will. Well, Rangers headed up there in a good mood, 4 wins. And I did a live show on Friday night with Stevie Clifford from Four Lads, CJ Novo and Mark Haley. And one of the kind of themes I think that emerged was we all thought, we're doing great, right? You know, we're really pleased with the reaction to Tynecastle. But this is kind of a definitive statement for Rangers in terms of should we get excited or not, because they have done well, but in the past when they've started doing well, there's been a sort of negative performance chucked in there. And it's Pittodrie. The conditions were vile. They were terrible conditions for a game of football. The pitch was very heavy. That's understandable. I'm not having a go at the sheep on that one because the weather's been atrocious up there. It was playable, but it was tough. And it was just a case of, can we go there and by hook or by crook, get the 3 points, get down the road? Because they obviously would have loved to put a spoke in our wheels, Davey. But I think the thing that actually made me happiest was the total control with which Rangers played that game. I never thought that Rangers were not going to win that football match.
Yeah, this isn't taken away from us and the significant improvement Danny Rose made, albeit I'm sure we'll discuss the potential still negatives and causes for concern, but Aberdeen are absolutely hopeless. And the beautiful thing about the last 2 games is that we have ensured that we have shown them up as being absolutely hopeless. There have been many times where we've gone to sides, quite frankly, worse than what we faced in the last 2 games. Aberdeen playing in probably better conditions than we played in yesterday. And actually, let's not take away from the fact that earlier in the week at Ibrox
wasn't very pleasant either.
Conducive to free-flowing football. It's really important that we have been so professional in those 2 performances. I know the manager said words to the effect of, essentially it's, 3 points and up the road. That is really in many ways all we could have asked. And I think we all, even after the sort of the highs of winning at Torquay, etc., we all definitely were looking at this double header, which happened because of obviously fixture rejigging, etc. We were looking at this as a potential sort of banana skin, and in many ways, as you say, regarding Friday night with Big Mark and the lads, season defining. I think we'll probably discuss the next few weeks, but certainly we couldn't have asked for more, Davey. I think that's the fair way to put it.
No, we did 2 solid routine victories, and yeah, I would have loved to have gone out and put a a 6-0 and a real statement victory. But I think that the fact that they were playing with a composure that they just weren't earlier in the season, let's be honest, a confidence, really, suggests to me that there's a bit more belief in the side. So we went up there, of course, and to the match itself, I thought Aberdeen were bright the opening 5-6 minutes, but then Rangers in the middle of the park. And I was worried because Conor Barron, I think, has been absolutely excellent in the middle of the park for Rangers. But I thought Raskin and Diamande controlled that match yesterday. I thought they worked very well together in tandem. I thought Asgard did well. I thought he did well when he came on against Aberdeen midweek, but he did play well. But when we got the goal, it was from a set piece, another beautifully worked set piece. And Rangers using Magoma and Tavernier to change the angle. The ball from Magoma was lovely. Rangers have moved Aberdeen's defenders to the back post. Asgard peels off. Lovely finish, Dave. But just a really, really excellently well-worked goal. And not the first. And look, Scott Fry, the guy clearly knows what he's doing when it comes to attacking set pieces, because it wasn't just that we scored yesterday again. It was the fact that every time we got one, we looked dangerous. And you can see now other teams are starting to go, shit, they always score from set pieces. So once you start to build that reputation as well, defences don't defend as well because they make mistakes because they're overthinking it. And I think you saw a bit of that yesterday.
Yeah, I wasn't critical of Scott Fry per se, but I was mindful that we had brought someone in to be focused solely on set pieces. And I think probably when I spoke about his impact wasn't immediate. So I think I'm holding my hands up that we cited something and he is starting clearly to improve. And ultimately, I suppose set pieces are no different than bringing in a new performance fitness coach. He's not necessarily going to, apart from the year 155 and injected everyone with performance enhancing coffee, he's not going to be able to solve problems overnight. So fair play to him. There is clearly a concerted effort to improve in that aspect of our game, and it is doing so. What I would say is that I think it'll be really those like the big games down the line in the season, or hopefully big games, the likes of the Hearts and the Old Firms, where that'll be kind of nip and tuck. If you remember, with a really tight Old Firm number of years back, when we were ravaged by COVID, and Big Phil Hollander stepped up and stuck his head in the end of a cross. So I think certainly it'll become more and more important moving forward. And I think particularly under Walter, I remember percentage-wise, we had a good sort of track record set pieces. So long may it continue.
I don't mean to take this back into, the very, very basic side of football, but if you have a team full of guys who are under 6 foot and you're not competing at set pieces, it's not a huge surprise. Rangers had a very small team for a couple of seasons. Now you look at that side and actually there's 4 or 5 big guys. Now, being big doesn't automatically mean you're good in the air, but Fernandes is a good example. He's a big guy. He can time a jump. He can time a run. Raskin proves you don't need to be a big guy. But if you've got 5 or 6 guys, which Rangers do now, that are well over 6 foot and good in the air, if you get the delivery right, you're going to have a fair old chance of scoring goals.
Yeah, and this is actually where I want to raise a point about James Tavernier, where I think yesterday, I think he showed his worth, not just in the penalty, but I think in general. And I think obviously being in and around the set pieces as well. I still think he has something to offer, and I think particularly in terms of his ability to cross the ball into the box. Look at maybe a discussion for further in this pod or another pod, but certainly I think that's a key aspect to it. And you're right, if we can get any way of a decent cross in with plenty of contenders to stick the ball in the onion bag.
Yeah, and like I say, it's nothing. For years, I think there was almost this thing that if you're good at set pieces, there was a snobbery about it. Like Sam Allardyce or Tony Pulis or whatever. And I think Arsenal have kind of blown that away because they're like, well, wait a minute, we're a good side, so we get a lot of set pieces. Why wouldn't we work really hard on them? It's an opportunity to score goals.
Yeah, of course.
And I think you're starting to see that now. And it's good to see Rangers. Interestingly, Dave, you mentioned there about a set piece coach, a specific one. The 2 teams in Scotland that are top of the goal scoring chart for set pieces are Rangers and Hearts, and they're the only 2 with a dedicated set piece coach. So there might be something in that. But anything that you can do to get an advantage, that's absolutely fine with me. Thought we had get the game clinched because you just knew that a second goal would absolutely clinch this match for us. And we thought we'd had it not long after, again, another set piece. Mitov, the keeper, who had a bit of a nightmare at Ibrox on Tuesday, comes for a ball he's never going to get, doesn't get there. The big man, Emmanuel Fernandez, is up, times his leap really well, heads the ball into the unguarded net, seems a goal, everybody's quite happy. Aberdeen players having a go at their keeper. Next thing, the keeper starts complaining. He goes over, John Beaton has a look at it, and it's disallowed. Now, this is one of these instances where it's a case of I don't like the rule rather than the refs got it wrong. At first, I was absolutely raging in the heat of the battle, and I think, to be honest, most ex-pros are saying the same thing, but the rule is in place, and having spoken to a couple of referees about it, they said, look, the thing is, basically, any contact on the goalkeeper, you give a foul, because it's deemed that he's moving his arms at being able to get the ball. But I was like, but Fernandez isn't doing anything. He's just leapt up, and if the keeper has entered the same space as him, there might be contact there. He's like, doesn't matter, that's the rule. And it's a stupid rule, but it is the rule. Keepers get too much protection unless they're Jack Butland when they get kicked in the head. It seems to be the rule about it. But it was pointed out, though, that Rangers... Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, and back you up to say, yeah, of course, you can challenge in the air, don't dare touch him. But if you want to just leather him on top of the head, you'll get away with it. So you're right, it's the inconsistency, Davis.
Inconsistency with it. But Rangers have had 15 goals disallowed this season, right? Which is nearly double the nearest, which is Celtic with 8. And this is, I think, the problem with a lot of things, right? I have to admit that I am a VAR convert, but in the other way than you might expect. I thought, okay, yeah, it makes sense, bringing in any major decisions that are wrong. But it's not being used, particularly when it comes to Rangers, the way I think it was intended. Now, the technology is just the technology. It's neither inherently good nor evil, right? It's the people using it. 15 goals by just after Christmas. That's a lot. It's 22 games, 15 goals disallowed. That's statistically anomalous, surely. And it's because when Rangers score a goal, a fine-tooth comb is brought out. Is there anything we can disallow this goal for? That's the mentality. I need to go through absolutely everything. Is there anything at all we can disallow this goal for? And I think that, to me, that absolutely goes against, what it was brought in for, the spirit of the game, if you want to use a romantic phrase. Slightly hackneyed phrase, I'll admit, before anyone criticises me. But I just think that and it isn't specific to Rangers. There'll be fans of other clubs who've had red cards, and we've all seen, the clip on social media of a game that's like Motherwell, Kilmarnock, and there's a ridiculous red card decision in it. And it's because what we've done is we've taken football, right, and we're putting it now in the hands of fairly officious people in wee rooms, away from the action, away from it being close up, away from the emotion of the game. And I think there's a bit of job creation here as well, Dave, that they're going, right, I need to come up with something to justify my existence here and my fee. But it is ruining the game as a spectacle for me, because I when Rangers score a goal now, I assume that there's a 1 in 3 chance it will get ruled out for something, that they'll find something. And I think if you look at Mikey Moore's goal at Dundee or at Kilmarnock, for example, it's going through it with a fine-tooth comb, looking for anything. That's not what it was brought in to do. It's to check, is there anything obvious we've missed here? And when the case is no, you shouldn't be spending 3-4 minutes on every goal. And as a Rangers fan, clearly 15 goals, more than double anybody, or nearly more than double anybody else. The next is 8. There is something that is rotten at the heart of this, which is that they're very, very comfortable in looking to rule out goals for Rangers if they possibly can.
Well, look, I think there's a number of things. I think the rule, to start with the rule annoys me because there are numerous examples. Like, sometimes maybe we get away, they maybe go for us, go against us. But in general, when you're watching football and you see something happening inside the box, so let's say it's a foul, My gut always says if I was outside the box, the ref would just blow a whistle and, free kick. But as soon as you get inside the box, it's almost like there's another kind of set of rules, with it, like a Russian dolls, like rules within rules. I
The
think,
ref have spoken about this. They have it. They do. They have a higher threshold for fouls in the box.
yeah, and that's fine to an extent because ultimately,
Not
you
the
know,
rules.
no,
So
no, but this is the problem, is it? Where I understand a free kick and a penalty percentage wise, you have much more chance of scoring from a penalty and free kick, of course, but particularly something in the middle of the park. But the thing that annoys me is that when you then talk about the keeper, if you were to jump up and if Fernandez had jumped up and competed with, let's just say, for talk's sake, that lob had been played in, there'd been a centre half there, Fernandez jumps up, beats him in the air, ball goes in, right? Now, therefore, he's won his duel. Those that'll want to come back and argue with me will say, well, actually, you're not comparing apples and oranges here. You're comparing apples and oranges because it's a goalkeeper versus an outfield player. But actually, when I watch it in real time, I actually burst out laughing because it was the most, I was like, have we just scored there? Because it was so routine. No one complained. Literally, we ran, the whole thing was fine. And then, as you say, the keeper starts to whinge. And this is the issue I got with VAR. My view of VAR was it was to cut out amateur shambolic referees who, in their defence, are part time, paid a few quid as well as their day jobs. It was to rule out, column missing things that then 2, 3 steps down the line, we concede a goal or we score and it's pulled back, whatever the case may be. So that's not happening now. What's happening in VAR is, as you say, the fine tooth comb, trial by television. You're taking it right down to the slowest still. You're playing it through. And what is actually a fairly innocuous event almost turns into like a straight red card. And in this event, if you slow it down, the keeper's flapped at it. But if you get the just get the angle just right, it looks like Fernandez has barged into him ever so slightly. And if you notice, his arms have actually crossed. So they're both straight and they end up almost doing an X shape. But that's what's going to happen when you go looking for it. And I actually think this is where on-field referees need to be stronger. Where actually, if they haven't seen anything, if it's not clear and obvious, let's just get on with the game. On-field decision, go, move on. And that's a
but
frustration.
but this is the thing, and you see it at the weekend. Celtic should have a player red carded. Again, they don't. They're on this world record run of not having players sent off. And it's because referees give them the benefit of the doubt, and with Rangers, they never do. And by the way, Hearts, you're going to start getting this as well.
Oh, well, look, I mean, you're preaching the converted in this one, Davey, and I think it's really important to have these conversations when we've won and we're in a bit of a winning run, because I think there are too many of us within, whether it's the Rangers support or even within the building and the organisation, who are too quick to kind of take the no, we're better than that. You over the course of the season, it evens itself out, etc.
Yeah,
Which is the most ludicrous statement ever known. But the point is, we are in a good run, so we have actually some space to still talk about the fact that anyone, and I know we'll probably get to Mr. Gillespie in a second, anyone in leadership positions within the club needs to continually keep the pressure on the SFA and on the officiating, because it is not good enough and it is more often than not unfavourable towards Rangers. And that is a narrative that our friends in the East End of the city have peddled for years upon years. They were able to play the victim card when we weren't even in the division and they were winning everything in front of them. And this is the challenge that people say, we're better than that. No, we've got to fight fire with fire. We are at, dare I say, war. We need to be in a war footing with these people, and we need to make sure that, you're right, when Beaton's stuck in his wee porta cabin, wherever it is, and he's sitting looking at his various buttons, he has to have that little sound in the back of his ear, head, whispers in his ear, to think, if I go against Rangers, what is the impact? Because that's exactly how the other side of the old firm have built for a narrative for a long, long time.
no, totally. But what I was quite impressed with, Rangers didn't let that get us down or bother us, because it could have been a game changing, because you felt 2-0 was done. What I was really impressed with Rangers, David, in the second half, I expected Aberdeen to come out and really go for it. The manager had a go at them. They'd been flat in the first half. They're not a good side, as you said. I mean, there's a reason why Peter Levin's in charge. Just sacked their manager. They're a poor side. But I expected them to come out, and they didn't. Rangers controlled the midfield through Raskin and Diamande. You were right about James Tavernier. He had his best game for ages yesterday. Thought John Souttar was excellent at the back as well. Really good. And Rangers just took command. Obviously, at 1-0, you're always kind of right. I mean, anything could go wrong here. A set piece, whatever. But Rangers get the second goal. It's a foul on Gassama. Again, ludicrous complaints. I mean, it's a Stonewall penalty kick. He knee to knee, just runs in. His knee catches him. It's a penalty. That was a big penalty from Tav, because if he misses that, they do get a lift. We all go, oh, Jesus Christ, you know what happens now. It changes the whole mood and mentality of the game, but he puts it away perfectly, and at that point, the game's done.
Yeah, and I think that maybe there's no such thing as an unsavable penalty, but I think James Tavernier certainly showed technically yesterday when you wrap your foot round it and you get the ball right into the side netting.
It's virtually impossible, yeah.
It is virtually impossible. And actually, Tav, if you look at all his penalties, he is. I actually thought we're going to go kind of top corner here, but he actually, it was an important penalty. Dare I say, in many ways, it almost reminded me in terms of importance and significance of Rugby Park in sort of October 2020 when we had this grind of victory out there and we won 1-0. And again, I would love to know what his percentage success rate is in penalties, but he's certainly, for all of his faults, he's a hell of a penalty taker, and it was really pleasing. And actually, what I loved was the fact that the boys ran across to the Bears, and there just seemed to be, obviously we weren't at the game yesterday, but there's certainly a sense of connection, dare I say, between the supporters and the fans yesterday. I know you've mentioned some of the players, look, we'll probably go on to discuss our wider kind of title challenge, dare I say, but I think you've mentioned some of them. Like for me, if Butland, Souttar, Tav, Raskin, Moore, and ideally a striker and Chermiti, if they are all to go on a good, consistent run of individual form, and we then bolstered it with some of the potential signings that are being discussed, or in one case is in the door. There is the basis of something there. I don't want to be, too positive or too negative. I think we're probably a little bit early to start talking about being able to mount a proper challenge, but certainly we're going in the right direction. I think those players that I highlighted are critical to any future success.
Well, with the way that the next couple of weeks line up, the Rangers have got essentially 2 weeks to the next league game. We do have that. In the middle, there is a cup game at home to a lower division side. Now, as last season proved, you can't take that as a given, but Rangers should win that and win it comfortably. But we have 2 weeks now to get players in the door, get them training with they're not going to have one session or whatever, and give them a game to get in it. It's a pretty good situation to bed in new players. Although, to be honest, I was critical that we didn't have anybody in the door till literally just before kickoff yesterday. But the way that it has worked out this season, the circumstances are pretty good to bed in new blood.
Yeah, they are, and in a weird way, and I'm not trying to kind of like Ludogorets and Porto were, dead rubbers in many ways. So it's good that they are there as an opportunity, and hopefully Annan as well on Friday night. There are 3 opportunities, as you say, to bed in new players, which in previous years...
Any new ones in Europe, though, they're not in the European squad. I don't know what the rules
no,
are.
Sorry, no, I don't think you can. But I think that the point is that you can probably use other players in those European games that you wouldn't necessarily dare I say want to use, but I think it probably allows you to get better use of your squad is probably the point I'm trying to reach there. What I would say though as well is, on your point about wanting them in earlier, like every Rangers fan, every football fan wants, new signings in the door at 1 minute past 12 on the 1st of January. Like being in and around things, that is easier said than done. What I would say is that it's important that whoever we bring in now, and I think I said this maybe last week on the flagship as well, they need to be, in my view, starters. we can't have projects, people like a James Sands who came in several years ago, people who are sort of brought in with like, next season in mind, whatever the case may be. We are not in a position to carry anyone at this stage. And I think it's really important that everyone that comes in is someone that we have full confidence by the end of January. Certainly by the Hearts game in February, which by all intents and purposes could be a sort of 6 pointer, that they are there ready to go. And I would like to think, without sounding disrespectful to an 11 and a squad who've done well over the last number of games, I'd like to think that there would be changes to what would be perceived as our starting 11 by that stage in early February.
No, I mean, I think that's perfectly fair. It's perfectly legit. After that defeat at Tynecastle, I think realistically we thought, right, that's probably us done for the season in terms of the league title, and it was a bit building for next season. But the reaction has been spot on, and these were difficult games. Motherwell, very impressive side this year. St Mirren, obviously good side, won the cup, albeit at Ibrox. But then you've got Celtic away, Aberdeen twice home and away. These are, for Rangers, traditionally tough fixtures. To come out with 15 points, get the confidence, and as you say, begin to build that trust between fans and squad. It really has been an impressive response. The players do deserve credit because they've had plenty of criticism, but the manager, I think, just quietly works away there, Dave. He's not flashy. He's totally pragmatic, and he just gets what we need at Rangers, which is, it's great having philosophies, and it's great having, we want to play this way, but we need 3 points on Saturday.
Yeah, look, Davey, I'm delighted. I'm delighted for Danny Role because he inherited such a shambles of a situation. Russell Martin, without going over old ground, should have been sacked months before he was. It wasn't weeks too late, it was months too late. The fact that Tweedledum and Tweedledee made such a shambles of his own appointment as well, given that, it was on and off, and it was Muscat, it was Jared and various people. He's dusted himself down. He's come in. He's behaved and conducted himself with class, dignity. I don't want to get too carried away simply based on the fact that the other side of the old firm are in such a shambolic position. Hearts seem to be able to, they're certainly staying the course at the minute. They had a really good win yesterday, so certainly they're not going to go away anytime soon. And I think as well that although we are on a good run at the moment, and it's really, really pleasing, we all know at times how this particular team and squad have performed. So look, cliche, one game at a time. I certainly think if we can manage the next number of cup and European and league games, that game at Ibrox in the middle of February against Hearts will be huge.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely massive game. But hey, I'd rather have that than dead rubbers at this stage of the season. I'll tell you that.
Fair, yeah.
It looked as though that might be the case. Now, you mentioned earlier Nico Raskan, shocked Scottish football, which is easily shockable, it appears. Sky were certainly up on their high horse about it, he's soaking an Aberdeen fan. Be interesting to see what the fuzzy was just before that, as the Aberdeen fan is standing there with a cup with the lid off, suggesting that the juice has exited his. But look, one of my pet hates in football is fans who give it out, and if you're standing waiting at the tunnel for the players, you're giving it out, and then when they get anything back, react like that. Just wanting people hung. It drives me nuts. If you can't take it back, don't give it out, just in general, because it's just pathetic. But Aberdeen yesterday, one of our players got hit with a missile. It was happening constantly when we went to take corners. Bojan Miovski was getting dog's abuse. And then they've got the goal to turn around and complain that Nico Raskin scooshed one of them with water. It's complete bullshit, in my opinion.
Well, the fact of the matter was, Davey, the guy looked about 50 as well. Like, I can understand if the lad's 15 and he's, giving it the big lad. But, I mean, it's one of the worst days, weather-wise, of the entire football calendar this season. Get yourself home and get changed, get your pajamas on. Like, who in that situation decides to walk out of his way, and he's had to walk out of his way because there's, he's hanging over the
He's
side of the
hanging over the
tunnel
tunnel, exactly.
to shout abuse at Rangers players. And like, there's something, make no mistake about it. Their whole tifo, I couldn't actually work it out, and then someone on social media pointed out their whole tifo was essentially based around like some form of sly dig at well, Mayoski's in the squad and Barron wasn't, but at, players that have moved from what is essentially a small club that has won the league once in the last 40 odd years, and a European trophy, compared to us. I mean, woe betide Bojan Mayoski, Conor Barron, Ryan Jack, and many others deciding to leave Aberdeen for Glasgow Rangers. I mean, it doesn't bear thinking about. The whole thing really is just tin pot from start to finish. It's one of the worst Aberdeen sides I've seen in a long, long time. As you say, if you're going to hang about the big lad and you're going to shout stuff, and there's allegation that he's thrown something already, grow up. It's all a bit of crack. Let's just get on with it. If that's the biggest crime that's happened, I mean, make no mistake about it. Mark Walters was pelted with bananas at numerous stadiums when he came here a generation ago. If the biggest crime now is spraying a bit of water on your way out the door, well, let's all dry ourselves off and get on with it.
Yeah, I just think it's absolutely tragic. Grown men, who want to scream abuse at people, but the second anyone does it back, it's like, oh, police should be involved. Really? Fucking grow up. But as what it is, as they say. And David, the news came earlier today that Rangers have appointed Jim Gillespie as the new CEO. CEO of a charity, Kibble, and also St Mirren vice chairman. He'd been linked with a job previously under the old board, taking it now. And last week at a meeting with various fans groups, Andrew Kavanagh said an interesting thing. He said, I think in the past, a mistake that's been made here, not just at the start of the season, but previously as well, is that almost trying to run like a mini Premier League club. And that doesn't take into account the local environment, the specific circumstances that Rangers have, that you cannot just say, oh, well, this works in England, so it must work here. Which I think is a good lesson for him to have learned, because he's right, in my opinion. And I wonder if that played a part in the appointment of Jim Gillespie, because last time it was Patrick Stewart. He came from Manchester United. He didn't understand Rangers. He didn't try to understand Rangers. He didn't get the size of the club. He didn't get the demands. He didn't realise the importance of the support. I mean, you name it. He is an absolutely perfect illustration of what not to do in that job. Your thoughts on this? Obviously, somebody who's worked under the Rangers CEO.
Look, well, firstly, we'll wish Jim Gillespie nothing but the best. I know that there seemed to be a lot more kind of negativity towards his appointment previously than there has been this time. I kind of get the general sense now that everyone's like, look, jury's out. If he does well, like we'll support him and wish him all the best. Obviously, he'll be held to account as any executive at Rangers should be. But there certainly seems to be a little bit more. I suppose that I've said this before on the podcast, where there has been concern since our new owners have taken over that they haven't. I think they've had to learn a lot in a short period of time. Like, I can say this, having supported the club all my life, being from Northern Ireland, where you would view kind of the historic divisions in our country and in Belfast, where I live, is kind of preparing me pretty well, given the fact too that I worked in politics, and one thing or another would have prepared me for the challenges of Rangers. And look, it did to an extent. It absolutely did. But even someone like me who lived and breathed the club, even I was shocked at the challenges of which someone like Jim Gillespie will face, just in terms of the small p politics, the party political politics, the sheer intensity of a two club city. And I have no doubt whatsoever that, unless, in my view, you probably are at, and it's a totally different context, so you are slightly comparing apples and oranges, the likes of Lazio or Roma, or probably the likes of River or Boca. No Premier League team now operates in the intensity and the expectation that we do. In fact, probably an extent, and don't come down my throat, listeners, probably an extent the other side of the city either. And you can see that where, like, Manchester United have gone through what is now well beyond a decade of total ineptitude, a manager a year, traditionally one of the biggest and well-known clubs in the world. And from what I see, there's the odd protest here and there, but there's not really much bar. Oh yeah, we're very angry. And then more tourists turn up to watch them. Whilst Jim Gillespie is going to face, huge challenges, obviously internally. He will face huge challenges with the SFA. He will face, challenges with the SPFL. I have no doubt that him being one of us will very much work in his favour. In that, I feel, and I think that Andrew Cavan has now recognised this, that we always said at Rangers where you had to sense check it, and sense check it not just in terms of from a statement that it's spelling and grammar, sense check it and how it was going to land with not only our own fans but kind of the wider football, dare I say, family in Scotland. And look, I mean, admittedly, even including myself, we didn't always get it right. In fact, sometimes we got it wrong and badly wrong. And Jim Gillespie, I'm sure, will get things spot on sometimes and things badly wrong again. Where I think he can learn from Patrick Stewart is that it's a cliche, but without fans, football is nothing. And I think to proactively try to take on fans and fight with them about flares and banners and various things, I don't want to say there's only going to be one winner, because I think, as you can see, allowing fans too much support, the support too much power, as I think those in the East End were given over time, particularly when the board of the Green and White Hoops became fat and lazy, given their success. That is almost how not to do it. But I think Patrick Stewart as well showed how not to do it. So hopefully Jim Gillespie can build up a trust with fans very quickly. Hopefully that he can be proactive and on the front foot. And I think one thing that we have lacked, Davey, for a significant amount of time has been like a figurehead, a leader of the club who can come out and speak on our behalf, can proactively talk in our favour, and when it is required, can defend the good name of Rangers Football Club.
No, I would totally agree with that. And it's, you're spot on there. I mean, Patrick Stewart just couldn't do right for doing wrong. I mean, just if there were three choices and two were right and one was wrong, he always took the wrong one. And it came from a fundamental lack of understanding. And you need to be good at the job as well. And I mean, clearly, if he had been and he was doing even the job that the board wanted, then he would still be in place, because CEOs in general are not popular because they have to make decisions that we as supporters don't like. But you can be respected so long as you are making the right calls. We'll grudgingly go, he's good at what he does. That's not been the case at Rangers because it's been littered with errors. So yeah, we wish him well. But you're right. I think most people are just like, because it's not, you can't judge a CEO the same way you can judge a player. We can't go and watch videos of him CEOing. So we have to just see how he gets on. And one thing I think that's become clear this season is if he's not doing a good job, then they'll get rid of him quickly. Clearly with the 3 sackings we've already had in major positions this season, it demonstrates that. Right then, folks, that will do us for this week here on Heart and Hand. We will, of course, be back next week, and Cam will be here later in the week with Heart and Hand Extra. My thanks to our producers, Mike Lee and Paul Miles, and my thanks today to my splendid guest, David Graham.
Thanks, Davey. Thanks, listeners. Onwards and upwards, and on to Annan on Friday night. All the best to anyone going to see that classic.
Hey, a few goals and everybody will be quite happy in the right end right now.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
And just a reminder, you can get more from us over on patreon.com/heart and hand from just $1.99 per month. Get up to 5 shows every single day. And it's not just me. There's loads and loads of contributors as well. So thank you for joining us, listeners. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.